This week, I got so much better at dealing with my losses and making the most out of my winners. In this video, I'll be going through the systems and processes and thought processes that I have implemented to actually do this. Before we get into the video, just a bit of an account update. The first week I lost $150 and then the second week I lost $79. So making the account now roughly about $1,221.53. I am pretty frustrated tonight because I did the exact same thing that I do one day a week, every week, which is just like take loss after loss after loss on like a single setup. And I just feel like I need to read Best Loser Wins again, because I feel like the pattern is that like my trading strategy works pretty well. The issue that I have is when I lose, I don't just like accept the setup loss and I just keep going. And context was considered tonight. The context, although was a bit hairy on a larger spectrum, like I mean on the day chart, the 30-minute was still like okay enough, I believe, to have traded on it. In hindsight, there was a few things that maybe I could have considered more, which I can always learn from, but I do think that I have a losing issue, especially, and it gets worse, especially when I've had a winning streak or like I'm starting to build that confidence. Part of me was really excited to trade because I feel like I've just noticed, I guess, a fault that I've been having and that I can improve on, and kind of was looking at my last couple of months and going, if I fix this one fault, I'm almost a profitable trader. And tonight was kind of the first night that took, my equity curve from this back to going down again. So seeing that was a bit of a kick to the gut, but I'm trying my best not to think about that because I just think there's no point thinking about that. For years now, I have been struggling with losses, but this week changed everything for me, and that's because I spotted one thing that I need to change. See, in the past, some of my losses, I would take the loss and it would be fine. And then some other days I would take the loss and I just would not be able to accept this loss, and I just didn't really understand why that was happening. And I didn't really understand why this was happening because there was no sort of pattern in terms of journaling that could really help me understand why this was happening. I needed to actually look at myself and do so much self-reflection to realize that the losses that I couldn't accept were the trades that I thought were going to work perfectly. They're the trades where everything matched up, whether it was volume, the tape, context, absolutely everything looked fine in this trade. And that's why I was not able to accept the loss. But then I struggled with this further because instead of just accepting one loss and going, okay, well, that trade setup has fallen on the unfavorable side of my trading strategy and win to loss ratio, I then, for whatever reason, decided to compromise and go, okay, well, I can try this trading strategy twice or this setup twice. And that was just totally wrong because then it just completely skews my trader's equation, right? My win to loss ratio. Now let's just sit on that thought for a second because it's so important for people out there to understand if you don't yet. Let's say based on your back test, your win to loss ratio, you win out of 10 trades, you win 6, and out of 10 trades, you lose 4. But let's say if your trade is inevitably one of those 4 losing trades and you think it's okay to try twice on it, you could blow out that win to loss ratio and instead making it essentially 40% wins and 60% losses if you were to take those losing trades twice every time. Because instead of 4 losses, you now have 8 against 6. And I had to sit with myself this week and realize that because of my psychology, I wanted to compromise and try and go, oh, I can try 2 trades, and just realizing that that was such a wrong way to approach it. And even just noticing like my trigger is not when I've taken a trade that maybe I shouldn't have taken, and I can always improve on that. It's the trades where it was a good trade and everything looked perfect, and I'm unable to just accept that it fell on the unfavorable side of my trading strategy. So I just want to actually show you
one of these days where I kept doing it. Now, I won't go too much into the trade itself here, but you can see on these trades, I started at 7:08. So the first trade was at 7:08 in a very short time frame. This one was 3 minutes after. This one was, let's say, 6 minutes after. And then you've got another one that was very shortly after at about 6 minutes again. And if we pop into each and every trade, and I'm going to do it very quickly just to, I guess, get my point across. We were at a level here where I was going short. Everything looked fine to me on this day in terms of direction. So we had a bit of a fall. We've just broken out of this range. We had a 50% level here, right? And essentially we even had 2 legs, 1 leg up, pull back, 2 legs up into this area. If you follow our Brooks, you know what I'm talking about. But essentially, we had the peak of volume, very clear, right? Dropping volume, peak of volume. And I was looking to short once the tape signaled absorption, which it did a little bit at this point. Now, I took the trade and it lost. And then I was like, well, okay, I will try again. And I tried again and I lost. And then on the same setup, I tried again and I lost. And I tried again. And this one was actually over my loss limit for the day. And of course, I lost. And it wasn't that it was a bad trade. It's just that I wasn't able to understand the trader's equation and understand that unfortunately this trade landed on the unfavorable side of my win to loss ratio. And I should have just taken that on the shoulder and looked for a different setup rather than just trying to force that same setup. Now, I just want to kind of talk more on the trader's equation and make more sense around this, right? Let's say you had a spinning wheel and 40% of that spinning wheel is losses and 60% of that spinning wheel or pie chart is wins. Now, if I have a little spin dial and I spin that pin to see which one it lands on, we can all go, it's more than likely to land on a win rather than a loss. But the loss isn't completely out of the picture. That's why we use stop losses in trading, right? Now, let's look at another example. If you had, let's say, a bag of marbles and 60 of them were green and 40 of them were red, and you had to guess which one I was going to take out of the bag, you will always guess that it's going to be a green one because there's more green balls in that bag. But you have to understand that you still may fall on the unfavorable side of that ratio, and it is still possible for you to pull out a red marble. And that's so important to understand when coming into the chart, that just because your win to loss ratio is more favorable to you doesn't mean that every trade that looks good will be a win. Now, losses aren't the only time that I'm battling with my emotions as a trader. And a lot of my struggles and emotional struggles are actually coming from when I am actually in a trade and trying to manage that trade.
I took a good trade tonight, but I didn't manage it how I should have. I was fearful. I even said prior to me getting out of the trade, I think it's going to go down. Buyers are stepping in a little bit here, but they're not stepping in very aggressively, and price isn't responding to them stepping in. But I was just too scared to give back profit. I get to these points where I'm starting to build a little bit of confidence in my trading, but because I'm scared to fail, I then start to, take when I see green rather than holding it. And I think that's really holding me back at the moment. I originally thought that today wasn't going to be a trading day, but then a setup did occur. I took it, was slightly late, and just didn't manage it again from a take profit perspective. Jumped out too quickly. Yeah, I think this is where the psychology part of trading starts to come in, where you've got your entry, you've got your stop, but you can't manage the trade correctly because your psychology is not right, and you're not just like trading based on what you're seeing. You're trading based on how you're feeling. I wasn't confident in the trade, so I pulled my stop down, but I pulled my stop down based on wanting to cover fees rather than pulling my stop down to where it should have been based on the chart. I'm so frustrated right now because I took 2 trades that were not the best, Not the worst, but not the best. And then I took one trade that was good, hit 3R, and it reversed on me, only to hit me at a standard loss because I did not want to take profit, because I thought that price was going to go to a certain level and just like really wanted to stick with that. And I wanted to stick with that because there's been trades recently that have gone my way and I've taken profit way too early. It's just like this huge battle for me at the moment. I think I need to like bring in some rules of like when I should take profit based on like the 5 things that I see, you know. Who am I kidding? This trade had all the signals. 5-minute leg, peak of volume, absorption on the tape, at the bottom of a range. And I still thought I was smarter than the market and it was going to go further. I just like feel sick. These are the points in which you think that like you just like can't make it because it was all obvious and you just like still could not like execute. These are points that you kind of just like sit here and you just like wish someone would like tell you it's going to be okay and that like you will make it and you have what it takes, because I just feel as though I don't. And this is why entries don't mean shit.
If you have been watching the series recently, you would know that I've been struggling with my trade management, and I've recently realized that trade management is a lot to do with context. But the problem with that is context has a lot of variables and you always have to be able to analyze within the trade. The problem with that is being in a trade is when you're most vulnerable and I guess most emotional when it comes to trading. And so it makes it very hard to actually analyze and perform correctly whilst you're in that trade. So I had to bring in this week something that helped me deal with those emotions, something that gave me something to focus on and make it easy to actually analyze whilst dealing with those emotions. And it was taking 4 components of my strategy, and essentially, if 3 of them were seen on the chart, it's an instant exit. If 2 of them are being seen on the chart, then maybe I need to pull my stop down to break even or lessen my risk depending on which 2 it is. Now the 4 components are obviously totally personal to me and my strategy, but it's the tape, structure, volume, and is there 2 legs visible in this move that I've taken? Now, I want to go through one trade that essentially will show you what I'm talking about here, where I wasn't using these 4 components, but yet all 4 components were ticked off. So if I had seen or I was using the components to analyze my trade whilst I was in it, I would have been able to exit this trade and take a 3R profit trade, which is great. But I didn't, unfortunately. And then I'm going to show you one where I've had my biggest profit trade in a while using this method. So, and that's what really locked in for me this week was, oh my God, I have found something that allows me to maximize my profits on my trades. So let's go ahead. Let's look at the one where I essentially failed to use this method, or I didn't really have this method in place at this time. Now, all right, let's kind of go through the trade a little bit here. So you can see on this 30-minute leg down here, I've actually marked up a 50% level. So this is a level I was watching. Now, as you drop down to the 5-minute chart, you can see we've had one leg up and we've got a bit of consolidation here, okay? And we've peaked up. So if you've been following my recaps, you know that I'm looking for a drop in volume and a peak to signal that there is trapped buyers or sellers. Now, in this case, it's trapped buyers. So we did have a peak at a 50% level. So I have exited short here. Let's go ahead and just zoom up a little bit here. If I go ahead, let's put my trade on here. Now it says 2R here just on this, but I want to mention that as you can see, I actually added halfway through the trade. Now I'm going to take that away just so it's nice and clear, because what I want to show is we had everything linked up to this trade. We had the 50% level, we had the volume peak, the tape was signaling there was absorption here. So I've entered, my stop is above this high. And what happens is we had 2 legs down as per Al Brooks. We're at the bottom of this range. You can kind of see that there's bottom of the range. So we had the 2 legs. We had structure. We were at a structural point, right? And if you have a look at volume, volume peaked on this red candle as we touched the low here. That's 3 things out of the 4. Now, you can't see it on this, but there was actually absorption on the tape as well, which meant there was 4 signals that should have told me to exit the trade here. Did I do that? No, I did not. And as you can see, I took a loss at $71.98, including fees. Isn't that crazy? Like, that I was able to see that in this trade, but because I thought it might go past this level or whatever it may be, I was not able to maximize on the trade I took. And this is why entries are just so not as important as some of you guys may think out there. And I just want to make that very clear, that it is the whole picture and it is about managing your trades correctly. Let's have a look at one where I did manage it correctly. Now, this took basically a losing day to really decent profit. As you can see, I made $247 out of this trade, which is 5R against my risk, which is absolutely nuts, right? Like, that is a great trade. Even if I were to lose the same amount as I win based on my trading equation, I would still be profitable with this sort of win to loss ratio, which is really nice to know that. Now, I actually want to go through the replay on this one just so there's a nice clean chart and I can really kind of lay it out for you guys on this one, because this obviously was a very nice win. So now that I've got the replay ready, you can see clearly we're in a downtrend, right? We've had a very strong push down here. And as you can see, anytime we're moving up, it's quite weak. So my context already is quite bearish. I've seen this very strong leg. I'm expecting a second leg down. So what I've done here is I've marked up the 50% level on this move, okay? And as you know, if you've watched my other recaps, essentially what I'm doing is I mark up my zone based on resistance as well. So my zone is here, okay? Now we're in the zone, so that's normally when I'll drop down to my 5 minute. What can we see on the 5 minute? I can see that I've had a push up, we've had essentially a pullback, and then we've gone again. Now, as you can see, I've entered short here. Now I'm aiming possibly for a measured move, which essentially, if we're looking at this leg as one leg, we're looking for a move essentially down to here. Okay, that's kind of the initial target that we have, but we have to manage the trade based on our 4 components that I mentioned earlier. So if we go ahead and actually play this chart, let's have a look at how it plays out. I'm just going to speed that up a bit. I just want to pause it for a second. Volume peaks there, but we're not really at a structural level. Okay, you could classify this as a structural level down here, but not quite at that bar, and that's why I didn't exit. I wasn't seeing any absorption, okay? And we don't have 2 legs. We've only got 1 right now from that down move. So I'm still staying in that trade. Now, mind you, I want to point at my profit at this point because I'm over 3R. And normally, in most cases, I would go, oh, let's jump out of this trade with 3R, take money, take green, right? But I didn't, because I didn't have my 4 components met, or 3 out of the 4 components met. So I stayed in the trade. All right, I exited here, as you saw there. Now, why did I exit here? Now, if we zoom out, this is a bit of a bottom here, and we have some obviously large demand in this area. Okay? So at a bottom of a movement, okay, so we're at some sort of structural level here. We had a peak of volume, and that's why those 2 things plus my tape showed me that there was some sort of absorption here. That's why I exited my trade here. Now, if you would have seen and noticed when we're looking at the trade prior, you can see if we let this play out just to see, what does it end up doing? It goes to my measured move. So I could have got more than double of what I got out of this trade if I was able to hold through the pullback. But based on my strategy, I was able to capitalize on this move. And if you actually have a look here, if I were to mark up this level again, and based on support and resistance, we have that 5 minute level there. I would have been able to, we again had 2 leg move, okay? A peak of volume on that up candle there. If I were to see absorption here, I would have been able to re-enter into this move. So that's why I'm not mad at not missing this second leg here, because I would have been able to re-enter based on that. But it was more about taking profit based on 3 of those components being met. And that's how I was able to get more than just the standard 2 to 3 R out of this trade. And it helped me manage it in a way where I was not emotional and I was able to really capitalize off of my strong entry, because my entries are normally quite strong. I was actually able to capitalize on this trade. So yeah, that's really something that I learned this week. And I really hope that helps you guys out there on, I guess, managing your trades and how to deal with those emotions during your trades, because let's be for real, we're all going to feel those emotions. There's no real way to actually get rid of those emotions, but ways that you can help your brain manage them or focus on the technicals rather than the emotions you may be feeling.
Okay, what a night. I finished the night up, and there's a lot of things that I feel like I might have figured out tonight, maybe. Still self-doubt, still anxiety, and at the moment, if I'm being really honest with you guys, I'm really struggling, and it's not the trading, but I'm just feeling like very burnt out. Like, I don't think I can express how much I'm doing on a day-to-day basis to any of you. I wake up, I get ready, go to work. On my break, I journal my trades, I work some more, I come home, I exercise, I trade, I go to bed. Monday to Friday, that is what I do. Somewhere in between there, I try and script a video for you guys. I record it Friday, sometimes Saturday. I review trades further. I try and squeeze in some family time on the weekend. And at the moment, I've been also doing some work things on the weekend as well. Networking and stuff for my job. So like, I say this not to brag of like, oh, I'm like working so hard. I say this because I want people to know what I do on like a day-to-day basis, like a standard day, because that's what it has taken so far. And I feel like that's what it's going to take going forward. And I'm feeling burnt out. And honestly, I've been saying to my partner the last few days, like, I don't know how I can keep going. Maybe that's because I've been losing as well. Like, of course, when things don't pay off, it can definitely feel and have that effect.
Guys, I know it may not seem like it, but I feel so close to profitability right now. Like, I feel it. I feel like I've picked up my 2 major issues that could very drastically make me a profitable trader. And I just hope you guys believe in me the way I feel like after this fortnight, finding this and understanding this and developing this. I hope you guys see that too. And I hope this helps you to become profitable as well. If you guys want to kind of check on how I trade, check out my channel. I basically do a series on recaps on how I'm trading, what I'm learning along the way. And I also do videos on components that I actually use throughout my trading, like the tape. So if you do want to learn how to read the tape or time and sales, go ahead, check my channel out. There's a lot on there. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks. Bye.